Hello all, Game Methuselah. Want to do a small video about how I generate characters. Now, I know this still isn't the Grell Monster Mambo. I guess I'm so much of a snowflake and I feel so traumatized of my miniatures being all dented and broken and scratched and all my tiles spewing all over the floor that I just can't bring... Oh, wait a second. I'm going to give you a quick preview and more than likely encapsulate all of this. Grell. Grell are really cool. They're really neat little monsters. They're float, they're blind, they have dark sense, they don't need any light. What they do is they like to live in tall caverns or spiral staircases that run through dungeons. They come down, they attack the party. When they attack the party, they can grapple them. If they grapple them, they move upward, up their spiral staircase or into the taller part of the cavern. They have advantages on future attacks. They attack, they move up. You get the idea. They move up again, they attack again, and when they're finally bored, they drop the character. Grell. Lots of fun. You can add all kinds of little extra flying monsters like my favorite Sturgies or anything else that sort of suits your fancy. I always, a lot of times, mix them in with... oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the one. Chokers, that's it. The chokers that have reach and come out, so when the party tries to chase them up the stairwell, the little chokers can reach out and grab them from crevices and stuff. Tons of fun and frivolity. Well, okay, now you've seen the Grell video. Well, not really. I'll do it, and it'll be kind of cool, or at least cooler than what I just did. But you have the essence, and that's what I wanted to get you. What I thought I would talk about instead was something I tend to avoid, and that's character generation. And the reason I avoid it, I think, like you might have heard me say, is I always think it's best to interact with your game master and find out what kind of characters he wants to run in his world, something you can do that drives the story forward and really helps. Like in my Albion game, Craig ran a half Fomorian character. It was very, very cool. And we figured out how a half a Fomorian would be created. We used a Goliath, and it worked perfectly. And Craig ran this character, and he was really great because it fit into the story. A lot of my players, when you're used to the game master and you're used to the story, find it easy to fit into that. But often I find players do against type. They want to find out what the game master wants and do just exactly the opposite. Or they want to run something very unique and different and something that no one else has seen and totally unusual. And I understand that. You do see that a lot in Adventure League, and a lot of people run that, and it's nice and all. But when I design characters for myself, especially if I am unfamiliar with the game master, or if I'm playing a group that I'm unfamiliar with and not know what they run, I tend to run three types of characters, basically. They are, what's the three characters I'm currently running now in the campaigns? Bard, Druid, or Cleric. The reason is pretty simple, as you can imagine by me just naming them off. They all have healing. I find that in most games, what will end a party, if game masters are very strategic in the way they play, or if the games are difficult, or if the games are run hardcore, or any number of combinations where the players might not be up there to their best ability to get through easily, is the ability to heal. Now, it didn't used to be as valuable in older editions of the game, first edition, second edition, third edition, because you had to heal back from your damage to 0 and then above to basically be able to get up. Well, 4th edition changed all that, and when they came out with 4th edition, when you take hits, no matter how many hits you take, if it does not kill you outright, which it seldom does, you go to 0. So any healing you get from that point takes you up. So even a 6, 7, 8-point healing can be something. A 1 or 2-point healing can at least get you back on your feet and fighting again. And that is all important. So healers in the game become much more valuable. Not necessarily even a cleric, because he can throw a large healing spell. I have a life cleric I run. He's really good. He throws a lot of really high-end healing, but I find that not necessarily healing someone 20 points, 25 points is really much better than healing them 2 points, because a lot of times at higher level, the monsters do so much damage that if you're not above 20 points, it's likely it's going to knock you back down anyway. So often there is this seesaw of up and down and up and down, where character goes down, gets healed, comes back up, fights, gets knocked down, gets healed, comes back up, fights. And that's kind of a common situation now in current 5th edition. It kind of happens in other games that sort of have healing that work the same way. Not a lot of the ones we've played. Most of those are pretty grim. Going down is fairly brutal. But I think most people have adopted the concept now, even in other game systems, of when you are knocked down, you go to 0, no negative hits, and then any healing brings you back from that point. I think it's reasonable, and I think it's a more enjoyable way to play, and easier, and not so much just determining that if you take 30 points of damage, even if it doesn't kill you, you'll bleed out. And maybe that's more realistic, but it tends not to be quite as much fun for the players. And again, even an evil DM like me, who is always trying to beat down the players and make the game super, super challenging, wants to make it fair. Now, so saying, the reason, the Bard. More likely my first choice. The Bard is a fabulous character. If you get Xanthars, look at the Sword Bard. I think it's broken. I currently have a 10th level Sword Bard in one of our house games with Craig. I think he is a brutal character. He's half-elf, of course, cheesed out. That's about the best thing you can be as a Bard. He is a tremendous fighter. He can do a lot of really cool stuff, and at 10th level, he acquired 2 spells that he could not normally have. So I took Misty Step and Counterspell, the 2 spells he couldn't get necessarily that were very valuable. The reason is he can use his abilities to enhance his fighting style. He also attacks twice, very unusual for a non-fighter type character. He also has very, very cool magic. It's not like area effect damage magic, so they're not like going to fireball the monsters. But against certain individual monsters, they can do all kinds of very cool things. Charisma-based, and Dex is their other ad. So they're going to use finesse weapons. Charisma is actually very good for the Bard because it allows him to do all kinds of negotiation type things outside of combat. So he's really effective both in combat. He can also heal, so he kind of fills that gap as well. A Sword Bard can fight effectively, so he can fill in as a fighting role. Super useful. And he can cast spells. Now, if you get anything that allows you to, like I did, to have a magical instrument that gives all the creatures I cast charm spells on disadvantage, then it's kind of Katie bar the door. This character becomes really brutal. He can fight, he can heal, he can move a tremendous amount, he can modify his combat skills, he can modify other players, and if he casts charms on creatures, they are very hard for them to basically make their saving throws. He's a very strong character. Take a look at him, see if you think he's as broken as I do. I really enjoy him. And we go from there. The Druid. The Druid has maybe one of the biggest broken spells. I think I talked about it in a previous item where they have this sort of healing spirit that comes up, and it will heal a number of 6-sided dice based upon what power level you put into it. Now, it requires concentration, so of course it can be broken. But the thing is, if you start on the healing spirit, you get healed, or if you move into or through it during your turn. Well, the abuse on this can really easily be seen. You throw it adjacent to an enemy monster, and pretty much all the characters can just move around the monster during their turn, not disengaging to draw an attack of opportunity, and thusly getting the advantage of the healing. It's a very effective spell. The same thing with the Druid. He has good magic, again, not necessarily area power magic, but he can do a lot of useful things. He has a lot of interesting spells, and he can be very, very effective. If you take the one who obviously can shapeshift, he can do a lot of really cool things. Can't necessarily keep up a concentration spell, but there are lots of interesting ways he can work. Another really good class to take if you do not know the party you're working with. The last one, of course, is the straight Cleric. Now, this used to be my favorite in 4th edition. I used to run the pacifist Cleric, where he was so broken that most game masters, like poor Matt Kova, would just please don't run him. I have to modify my game to make it substantially harder to run him. When Mark ran it in my game, I was thrilled because I knew I could up the power of my creatures, and he would be able to do it. So I could modify the challenge level accordingly based upon the character. He was really great. I run a life cleric now, and he's very effective, and I like him a lot. He's becoming more effective as he goes up and acquires some things, but for the most part, he's a spellcaster. He's strictly not going to get in melee. Now, you can build different types of clerics, and I've seen a lot of different ones that are very effective, but the one thing about having somebody who can heal, and the big thing is the mass area effect healing, where you can heal multiple characters at one time. Even if it's not a large amount, I've been in situations where 3 or 4 characters go down, I cast this mass heal, they're all back up, the game is afoot. And then the monsters realize they need to go target the cleric. If most of you DMs don't understand it, if you don't target the healers whenever you can, they're going to make your game a lot harder. And I like any kind of character that can heal. I'm really, like I said, in love with the sword bard right now, or almost any kind of bard. I like druids, I like clerics. Now, in my game group, I tend not to have to run the cleric because my friend Dave usually runs a cleric and he does a superlative job, so I never usually have to. I can fall into other characters I like. I love the rogues. I love running rogues. In 4th edition, I had a fabulous rogue named Pinecone, and he was great. And in fact, he was so good, every time I played him, Matt swore I was cheating. And, you know, it was just a good character. I'm very sorry that 4th edition did not live longer, and Matt didn't keep running this campaign on, because I had really enjoyed this character. But again, it requires a good understanding of your party members of how things are going to work. From then on, it's all up to you. I love paladins. Again, there's a little bit of healing there, so they can be of benefit. But I just love the pompous nature of paladins. The fact that they are so sure that they're absolutely and completely right, that they're such a great joy to play. And you can take any sort of tact based upon your gods. They can be annoying and fun, but they can really be a great role player in your game. They're fun to play. It can be great. And what's nice is to always give them some kind of little foible or weakness that the game master can take advantage of. I try to do this with all my characters, where I try to put in a weakness so the game master can use that if he wants to be able to drive his story forward. I think that's really good. I mean, I like that in 5th edition when they came up there and they wanted you to have a little secret. But when you come up with that secret, don't make it something just dumb or you didn't think. Think about it. Tell the game master and say, well, this is how it affects the story, or how it might affect your story, and let them run with it. Now, most won't, because it's very tough being a DM, and it's always hard to integrate everything, so you can't expect anything, but it's good to run. Now, love monks. So does everybody else. I think I told you in a game I was recently in, there was a party of 7. I think 5 of them were monks. Okay, it might be a little overdue, but they're fun characters. From then on, it's really up to you. Fighters are nice. I run a lot of them. Normally, I run a very defensive fighter. The idea there to protect the other characters so they can, get their abilities off and win the battles. Fighters don't always necessarily win the battles, so some designs I've seen can really do a lot of damage. It's often better for them to do the best thing they do, which is tank. Yeah, Matt mentioned Jordy's game when we ran as the Condemned, and it was a great campaign. I ran a fighter, and basically what he did is he just basically pissed everybody off around him. He threw all these marks out in 4th edition, so if you didn't attack him, you had great disadvantages on attacking anybody else. And then he had all these whirlwind defenses and whirlwind attacks and area effects. So even though he didn't do much damage, he took a lot of damage, he could suck up a lot of abuse, and he basically got everybody to beat on him, thusly allowing the magic-using characters and the more powerful people to do the damage that was necessary to win the fights. And that's good. I love, when I run, to run a character that constantly helps the party. I like it if they're quirky. One of my other Adventure League characters is a halfling barbarian rogue, which I basically call a tanky rogue, because that level of barbarian with no armor and just a small shield gives you a really nice armor class, and the fact that you can rage, so you take half damage from melee weapons. Well, it's really nice. And then you're roguey on the other side, so you're getting some damage benefits and doing all this. It's a fun character. And he's fun because you can also run him kind of kooky and crazy, when you're not actually meleeing. My friend Mark has a character like that in our game. He runs it very humorously, and it's really fun to play with. And I ran the same in my game, and it was fun, because barbarians, you could have a lot of fun with. There's so many good characters out there. It really, really depends on what you like and what you want to run. I'm just giving you what I like when I'm coming into a group that I don't know. Invariably, like I said, coming down the list in a group I don't know, I'm going to run a Cleric or a Bard or a Druid, or maybe a last and least, a Paladin. I want to make sure at some point I can heal. When battles go south, when the game is on the line, I want to make sure that we always have that last chance to save the day. So I hope this is some benefit for you. Again, sorry for no Monster Mambo. I hope the one I gave you was at least a little bit useful. So until we have a chance to speak again, fight me devils fight, for I hate peace. Game on. Have a great weekend.